Hello, I'm Lynette Pohlman, Director and Chief Curator of the University Museums. We're here today doing a digital program, which was originally scheduled to be an in-person program that reviews the Contemplate Japan exhibition. This will just be a short survey about the contemporary highlights of this exhibition and may be presented to you in several shorts. Today, I want to talk to you about the concept and the origin of the idea of Contemplate Japan. Anne Brunier lived most of her life in San Francisco. From there was many imports that came into San Francisco, and she collected a variety of Japanese artifacts and objects, from ceramics, jades, enamels, dolls, and we've had a large collection of historic Japanese works of art. We combined what Anne had collected with what we think is 200 years later and how we continue to be greatly influenced by the aesthetic of Japan. And that contemporary aesthetic is brought to us in this exhibition with 3 contemporary artists. But before we begin, we were able, through the generosity of Joyce Brewer, a donor who set an estate gift for acquiring new works of art. The first work of art from the Joyce Brewer Acquisition Fund is this print, this Japanese print, and it epitomizes the idea of this show, of the way of art. It presents many of the objects that you'll see in the show, the kimono, the festival dolls, the boys' festival in particular, the art of ikebana, and then just the aesthetic of the Japanese prints. It has ceramics in it as well. And we felt that that work of art summed up the historical approach to this exhibition. And from that, we then have them fast forwarded nearly 200 years to the contemporary artistic expression. First, we're going to talk briefly about Karen LaMonte. Karen LaMonte is an artist who grew up in the East Coast, spends a great deal of her time in Prague, mostly working in glass. This particular sculpture, however, is in ceramics. Karen spent some time, about 9 months, in Japan, studying the Japanese culture and studying kimonos. This is one of my favorite works of art in the exhibition. I love how it is respectful of the ceramics that we have throughout the show. It is a lovely reflection on the human form, which is something the museum studies constantly because of the Christian Peterson heritage of the figure. The grace that is exuded from this work of art, even though we don't see a full figure, we see the anatomy of the figure in the kimono. And as the bow and the kneeling is about to occur, showing movement in a still sculpture is always a difficult thing to do. And I think that Karen did this superbly. That it's a solid sculpture with great light and shadow. And it also has sprigs of gold in it that is very reserved. And so it makes you think about the quality of something that is valuable and the scarcity of something that is valuable, and using just a bit. It doesn't have, nothing has to be overdone. The elegance and the simplicity. This work of art is placed in this exhibition purposely by the next to the print that you saw earlier. And they hope you reflect this notion of this particular figure maybe kneeling in order to get ready to do either the tea ceremony or ready to do ikebana, but it is in emotion, it's in process. Karen LaMonte has beautiful other figures in glass and ceramics in this exhibition, and I think she has taken great influence from Japan and brought it to her Western culture, and it really then comes down to a global experience, a global aesthetic. It's no longer East or West, it is now both. It has taken the best aesthetics of both worlds and given us a new interpretation, which is always what art is about. There's 1 or 2 stories, and then there's 10,000 stories. Each of us need to find our own story within each unique work of art. Bamboo sculpture is one of the other exhibitions in Contemplate Japan. It's through the generous lending of Karen and Robert Duncan, Barbara Jansen, and Art Hilsinger that we were able to present these baskets to you. Over 60 of them are here. Half are presented in historical context and half are contemporary. Honestly, it is the craftsmanship and again the elegance of the shape and the form and the beautiful craftsmanship that goes into these baskets, whether historic or contemporary. Behind me is a beautiful wall hanging, and it shows the fragility of the bamboo as well as the pattern and the weaving, and also notice the shadow. It's something that could be a fly catcher, a dream catcher if you were on a native interpretation, but it just shows the elegance and the natural material. Even its support structure has the notion of a branch, which I'm sure was very elegantly chosen for this particular work of art. It looks very happenstance, but everything has its purpose and its interpretation. This is what makes an example of what transforms craft into art, where the craftsmanship is so meticulous and the aesthetics behind it is so good that it creates an aesthetic object that allows us to provide our interpretations, and for me, of beauty and simplicity. Peter Harmon's art begins in Iowa, and yet he is a citizen of Japan. Peter was born in Nebraska, spent a good deal of his young adult life in Iowa and Minnesota, where he learned the craft of pottery making. The aesthetics drove him to explore, expand the pottery of Japan. His aesthetic also led him to create a home and a family in Japan. His experience to me exemplifies what Contemplate Japan is about: the merging of two worlds, the merging of our personal thoughts, beings, and expressions with that of other cultures. Peter's ceramics, their porcelains, are beautifully made and nuanced. Oftentimes they almost look like snow caps. There's a reflection of light blue in these. This is a box. Some call it a marriage box. Sometimes it's just a box for containment. If you put the overlay of exploration of world cultures, oftentimes this might have been seen as a marriage box, which would have been filled with valuable things that parents would have given to their daughter on the or on her wedding day, and that she would have taken to her new home. It could also be just a storage container for other things that were valued. It is just so very simple and so very elegant. Peter has talked at great depth about what it takes to be a craftsman and deal with the porcelain of this size, and also to craft, to cut into the porcelain, which is something that isn't always done, but in a very, very subtle design. And these designs, again, are reflections often of natural leaves, twigs, other things that he would find in the natural world. We at University Museums are fortunate that we have a collection, contemporary collection of Peter's works of art. We've been collecting his art objects for the last 20 years. And again, it's that idea of building bridges between worlds, those expressions between worlds, and sharing all the best of what humanity can create.